Welcome into this week's episode of the Dynasty After Party on a Friday, as you may have noticed if you're watching this live, that is. Welcome in. My name is Michael Sicoli. I'll be joined by Joel Wirth just in a second. We're diving into rookie quarterbacks today. As we're building up into draft season, into draft day, we're looking at the quarterback position today and how it stacks up for Dynasty. Joel and I are going to talk about that, a few of the news, a little bit of news of the week, a few trades as we always do, and get into all that good stuff that helps you dominate your Dynasty leagues and your Dynasty rookie draft. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode. Here we are, Joel, back again today on a Friday because of Easter coming up. So we are here. We're back. How are you doing today? What's the vibe like this morning? Is that baseball a Yankees shirt or something you're wearing?
No, this is
opening day.
The Brewers opening day for my beloved Brewers. So yeah, it's like I said on Twitter this morning, any Friday with the Dynasty After Party is a good Friday. So opening day, we're banging it out.
Unless you're a Rockies fan, it's a good day for everyone but a Rockies fan who have
then it's never
opened
fun,
the season with a 16-1 loss. But
what a disaster of a franchise.
Within the first 4 innings, I don't know if you caught that. We're not here to talk about baseball, but they were down 16-1 at the top of the fourth, and I believe their second pitcher, I don't remember who was pitching, had a 145 ERA. But whatever.
Al Freeland?
No, it was after Freeland. It was the guy who relieved Freeland because they pulled Freeland because Freeland had a 37 ERA. But
beautiful.
So, yeah. But we're not here to talk about, baseball. That's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about headlines and show stuff and dynasty rookie quarterbacks, calling out our favorites and all that. So as we get into our headlines, just make sure you are following Club Fantasy FFL at Club Fantasy FFL. If you're watching right now on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, we highly encourage you to check out the YouTube page because it's just honestly it's a platform just specifically designed for streaming. It's a better way to view our content. And if you hit that subscribe, it really does help us. So I would always love to see that. And always feel free to comment in the chat. But let's jump right into those headlines, Joel. Jerry Jeudy. This was a curious one from kind of a week and a half ago, but Jerry Jeudy got his bag. It was I believe it was a 4-year or 3-year, $50 million deal, something like that, with like 35 in guarantees. It was a good chunk of change that the Browns gave to Jerry Jeudy after trading for him, and I'm curious on how you took that deal.
Somebody in the Browns front office must be a dynasty player who was really high on Jerry Jeudy coming out of the draft in 2020. I don't get it. I mean, what has he done at the NFL level to make you think he deserves that contract? I don't know. What is he good at?
I mean, occasionally, his separation's really good. Occasionally, it's really good. It should be good all the time. I don't really know why it's not good all the time, but he has good route running.
He's a good route runner, but he does nothing else well that gets him. I mean, he can't catch the ball. He has no yards after catch ability. Cool. If you want to sign your second Elijah Moore, I mean, you already had Elijah Moore to do that. Now you want to sign a second one and pay him. Okay, that's a decision.
It's one way to support Deshaun Watson, I suppose. It was surprising, and especially to see them give him a deal with some good guarantees. He's a receiver that really strikes you as still needs to prove it. A prove it deal. Huh? If he was a free agent, it feels like he would have got a prove it deal as opposed to this, contract extension that he got. So it'll be interesting to see how the Browns use him. I don't think either of us have all that enthused about Jerry Jeudy, or honestly, for me, the Browns passing situation. Outside maybe Njoku, I guess. But that's another topic. Either way, on the Broncos side of this, was there anyone of note? Obviously, they signed Josh Reynolds as well. Do you see anyone else stepping up aside from Courtland Sutton in Denver? Maybe a Greg Dulcich?
Well, I mean, this should give Marvin Mims an opportunity. I mean, he just couldn't get on the field last year, which is I mean,
Disturbing.
it's not just that he didn't produce. It's he couldn't get on the field. He was
Brandon Johnson got on the field.
he was a
Nobody knows who
situational
that is.
guy more than anything. So I mean, that's really kind of terrifying. So, we'll talk about Denver later because I think it's like a perfect landing spot. That's not going to happen for one of these quarterbacks, but and it's not the one I think most people think. But yeah, it would be nice if Marvin Mims could just get opportunity and see what he can do. But yeah, we'll talk. We'll hit on that later.
Yeah, it was not the encouraging season. The metrics really were not very good for Marvin Mims on the limited routes he ran. He ran 247 routes and only saw 33 targets. That's not quite what we want to see on a 41% snap share. So couldn't really do what we wanted to get from him. I'm nervous, but that's going to be a topic for another show at some point when we talk about second-year players. I'm sure we could dive into that one maybe after the draft or something like that. But J.K. Dobbins, 100% healthy, cleared for football activities. He is a free agent. I desperately want this to work out, as do you. But what happens now? I mean, he's still a free agent. Do you think he's going to get signed before training camp, or does he need the injury to happen?
He's going to get signed. It's the track record of running backs coming back from Achilles injuries is so shaky at best. I mean, it's just not good. So, and it's a guy, he's torn an ACL, he's torn an Achilles. I mean, the guy can't catch a break, but I don't want to say he's injury prone because like it could have been a cascade injury. You never know. It could have been a compensation injury for coming back from the knee. Man, he's been really good when he's been healthy, but that just hasn't been enough. So I think somebody will sign him probably sign him before the draft, but I don't think there's any guarantee of that.
He did visit with the Chargers yesterday, which would obviously be a very good landing spot, regardless of who they bring in the draft, because we already know J.K. Dobbins can beat out Gus Edwards, and it's a very familiar Greg Roman offense that has run with J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore and basically drafted him. So that would be an ideal situation, is him landing in Los Angeles and trying to restart the career with the system that's worked for him, but it is worrisome. And it's one of those rare situations, Joel, where I know where I was when this news broke. When the news broke that he tore his Achilles, I was in the middle of a Best Buy in Connecticut. I was shopping for a TV for my decrepit college house, and I fell to my knees in the middle of a store and wept for I lost J.K. Dobbins. I still remember the show we did after that as well. It was terrible. So I'm really hoping it works out. We're both fans.
Yeah, I think Jagger was on with us, right? When we did that show.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah, it's such a bum. I have a lot of shares, and like I haven't just dumped them or anything, but so it would be really good if he can go back and do something. But I do not have I'm not counting on him. I'm not slotting him into a starting spot and saying I'm good there.
If a contender offers you a second after he lands with the Chargers, would you take it?
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting. Because I think that'll be about what his value will be. If he landed with the Chargers, right now, while everyone still is kind of expecting him to sign draft Blake Corum or something like that, if that feels like it'll be right around his value. Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson saying Tank Bigsby needs to get more involved in the team's rushing offense 2024. Now, I include this for you, Joel, because we and like anyone else, you know what the funniest part about these reports are, right?
What's that?
If only Doug Peterson knew someone that could make that happen. Like, yeah, I just I love stuff like that where the report is either worded or said exactly like this, where the head coach comes out and says, "Yeah, we need to get him to do something." I'm like, "Yeah, you probably do." I mean, I'm not a Tank Bigsby guy, but I love reports like this because it's so silly when it comes from a head coach. If it comes from a general manager, I'll give a pass, but.
I'll say this. I mean, if Doug Peterson is being genuine when he says this, then he's probably as bad a coach as I think he is, because there was nothing in Tank Bigsby's rookie year outside of the preseason that made you think that he needs to get more carries or more. I mean, that's someone. Yes, they should be looking to take load off of Travis Etienne, but I don't think Tank Bigsby is the guy to do it. They should be looking for his replacement.
They should be looking for people to block in front of him. And on the
That
topic
too.
of running backs, the Steelers made a big acquisition, reuniting Cordarrelle Patterson with Arthur Smith. We are so back. Goal line C. Patterson over Najee Harris is a go. All the Jalen Warren truthers are about to cry over the Cordarrelle Patterson third down plays. It's going to be so ugly. It's going to be so Arthur Smith. But Cordarrelle Patterson is a Steeler, and it is going to be meaningful in terms of not for him, but for his role, impact on everyone else around him. Do you agree or disagree with that? Because I think he's actually going to be on the field.
Yeah, I don't.
I do.
He wasn't good last year. I
No.
mean, he's getting bigger as he ages, right? So I don't know that whether that's him intentionally trying to put on weight or BMI to be a running back. I thought it was interesting that they signed him right after the announcement of the kickoff return change. So
yes, I do think that.
I think that's probably the intention, but I don't know that his body type is the same as when he was kind of an elite kick returner 10 years ago. I mean, how long ago has it been? So interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a nuisance signing is what I think it'll be. But
probably,
obviously not someone we're looking at for fantasy, and it doesn't really change anything on the Atlanta side because Cordarrelle was both a free agent and phased out. But let's keep going here, Joel. We're done with the headlines. We've talked it through. Now we're getting into the meat of the show, and that is fantasy football rookie quarterbacks, diving into what they mean. And I notice our list here of bullet points that you've set up. I want to just say that you set this up. They're a bit down. They're a bit dour. The tone on this document I'm looking at. One of them, and I'll share for a viewer, says Joel's such a wet blanket. But first, you also say Kurt Warner is right. Now tell me what Kurt Warner is right about.
So Kurt Warner went on Twitter and said, basically, how do you evaluate these rookie quarterbacks or these quarterback prospects? Because the way these offenses are running in college just in no way translates to the end. Like, nobody's running pro style offenses, and what they're being asked to do at the college level just is not what they're going to be asked to do at the pro level. And so everything you look at, you have to make a projection. It's like, how does what he does well translate to the NFL? And obviously there's some skills that will translate, but like when we're going to talk about Caleb Williams, we look at him specifically. Like, in all the tape I looked at, I watched, I saw one snap of him under center, and that was a quarterback sneak. Everything is in shotgun. Everything is shotgun. And it's for all these guys, for Jaden Daniels, for Drake May. Everything comes from shotgun. No one plays under center in college. And if you look at Caleb Williams, like playing this Cliff Kingsbury offense, like 60% of his passes were bubble screens, wide receiver screens, just within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. That offense doesn't play in the NFL. There's some physical traits that you can look at with these guys and say, oh yeah, that translates. That's what you want to see. But the ability to read defense, the stuff you're going to need to be able to do at the pro level is how do you look at? I mean, you can look at these guys and say, okay, he can't do this. I don't know how you look at any of these guys and say he can do what you need to do at the pro level.
And I think that's the big thing with Kurt Warner's takeaway was that we don't know, and that there's so much that we don't know until we see it. And what his point in bringing that up, because I remember now and I've read about it, was CJ Stroud, right? Was somebody that we all saw on tape. Stroud wasn't asked to do a lot of that. His first read was usually open, and he usually threw it on the platter. It was a perfect throw. He did what he needed to do. He wasn't really asked to do more than that, and therefore we kind of had to just have that question mark. And once he answered it, everything else was already there for us. So it's going to be interesting to see how it translates. And I just want to first off and say how much I love you saying the USC offense doesn't translate to the NFL, because who was calling that USC offense?
Cliff Kingsbury,
who's back in the NFL. And was wanted by.
He's going to be coaching whoever ends up in Washington.
whoever ends up in Washington. So take a rip to Drake May or JJ McCarthy, whoever that'll be, but or Jaden Daniels. But either way, it is something to look for. I know something I look at when I'm trying to scout the quarterback is just where the eyes are. That's I look at where his head is looking and how quickly it gets to each phase of the field more than I look at footwork, more than I care about where the pass ends up. I want to see what he's looking at. And that kind of creates a mixed bag. And I last bit because I'm rambling a little bit here, but with Caleb Williams in specific, what I think people it endears to NFL teams is that he makes his own plays once it breaks down. And quarterbacks that can, create something after the play and can extend plays, it's unteachable almost. That both type of athleticism and a poise to still be able to look downfield while everything that's been scripted for you is out of whack. So that ability, it's something that obviously drew the Colts to Anthony Richardson last year. And all the great quarterback prospects in past years, it's something that you just can't teach, and I think those things are always valuable.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more in depth when we get to the individual players. But you brought up C.J. Stroud. If you look at C.J. Stroud's prospect profile, what were we concerned about last year coming out was, okay, one was the S2 test, which was kind of nonsense. It turned out to be kind of nonsense. And two was, he's got the ability to kind of run, but he really doesn't. He's more of a pocket quarterback. We'd like to see him do more. None of those were evaluations on or had anything to do with his ability as a passer and as a quarterback, as a leader. And you can obviously that translated, right? So he's super accurate. He's got a big arm. He can put the ball wherever he wants. Can make all the throws. I think there's one player in this class who has upside to be more than what C.J. Stroud is, and that's Caleb Williams. Other than I think C.J. Stroud is almost infinitely better prospect than anybody else in this class. So, and then that's obviously C.J. Stroud is really good. So it's in other news, water is wet. I get that, but if you look at the guys who are in this, the Drake Mays, the Jaden Daniels, they've all got warts that C.J. Stroud didn't have, right? And C.J. Stroud he was one of the few guys who played in a pro style offense, and so you could see what he did in college was going to translate. So, yeah, I'm just not super high on this class at all.
Which is interesting to hear you say that, because it's obviously perceived to be one of the better quarterback classes in recent years, both because of Caleb Williams being at the top and the depth of having guys like Penix, Pratt, Bo Nix, all those guys being likely day two names when they would be, in some down years, they could be in round one. I'd argue that Bo Nix, Penix, probably just those two, but they would have went before Kenny Pickett in that draft class.
Oh God, yeah.
Which was an all-time bad quarterback draft class, and we knew it going into it. But regardless of that, good to see Gator as always. Good morning to you, man.
Gator?
Going with the Friday show here. Always love to see. Now, Joel, I'm gonna have to get to the wet blanket part of this. You do mention that you're a wet blanket, and I'm curious on why you're a wet blanket. Is it just because you're down on this class?
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be there's enough guys in this class that some of them are going to be good NFL quarterbacks, right? I don't know who they are. I don't know. There's 6 guys who I think have legit, you could legitimately have 6 guys go in the first round. I could see that happening. Are more than 3 of them going to be starters in 2 years? I mean, are they going to escape kind of the Kenny Pickett vortex? I'm not sure.
It's quite a vortex he has named after him. But let's dive into the players we've been talking about. We've talked already a decent amount about Caleb Williams at USC. The darling, the best prospect since insert name here. Andrew Luck is one of those. Peyton Manning, another one of those names that's been. Yeah, I agree. I don't think
you don't have to go back that far. You don't have to go back anywhere close to that far.
Yeah, best. What would you say? So let's finish that sentence right there. He's the best prospect since.
He's not as good a prospect as either Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow.
I was going to say Trevor Lawrence. Joe Burrow is very close because of how unbelievable the senior year was, but it was also one season. He was a little bit
It was one
older.
season, but it was like the
It
best
was a
college season
really good.
ever.
It was a really good college season. That LSU team will forever. I will never forget that college LSU team. And people won't. But either way, we're not talking about Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. Caleb Williams, great quarterback prospect. We've talked a decent amount about him. Is he your locked in? I know we mentioned this seems like almost every single week, but Superflex rookie drafts, he's your locked in 101.
Uh, I've
Oh,
talked about this before. If I have, like, most of my teams have quarterback rooms built up, if that's the case, then I'm taking Marvin Harrison over him because I think he's a better and safer prospect. But yes, if I needed a quarterback, he is 101 with a bullet.
right. So yeah, and that's all fair. And again, we've talked about that, so we won't waste too much time. But obviously, we know that he's going to Chicago. Chicago trade Justin Fields. They are sticking with Chicago. So sticking with a new coordinator coming in to Chicago, what are your expectations for Caleb Williams, who has already met with Keenan Allen at his pro day? Keenan Allen already made his cameo, and the entire city of Chicago was also at that pro day. So, what are your expectations for his fit in year one?
So I've made the comparison. Like, I think Caleb Williams' ceiling is basically Jordan Love, and the more I watch him, the more I think that, like, to, he's got some. He's when you look at him, you can see some similarities to Patrick Mahomes, but he's not like he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the it factor that Patrick Mahomes has. Like that, I'm going to put my team on my back and I'm going to beat you, kind of thing. He just doesn't have that. Could he develop that? Sure, but I don't see it, and I don't think that's likely. So when comparing him to Jordan Love, he's got the elite arm talent. He's got the ability to make the off-platform spectacular throws, but I think he leans on it too much when he doesn't need to, and that's a big problem with Jordan Love as well. Is he can make these kind of spectacular throws, but he doesn't need to, right? There's a lot of times where it's just, dude, just step into it and rip it and go, and you're going to be better off. You don't need to make these kind of back foot fall away sidearm throws when you can just turn and grip it and rip it. To borrow a golf term, just get it in there. So he's got, like I said, he's got elite arm talent. There's no question about that. He's got some really sketchy, like, deep ball accuracy, and I think that's something that can be fixed. But Jordan Love had the same thing the first half of the season, right? He was missing badly on some deep throws, and Caleb Williams does the same thing. So I think there's a lot of comparisons to kind of early 2023 Jordan Love, where he was like, you could see the talent, you could see it was there, but he was kind of really struggling to put it all together. Obviously, he's going to have a better, like, Caleb Williams in Chicago is going to have a better supporting cast. He's going to have than early Jordan Love did, right? Because you get a bunch of young rookie receivers who are kind of really struggling to run the right routes, learn the offense, stuff like that. He's going to have DJ Moore. He's going to have Keenan Allen. Man, if you give him superstar Bayless Jones, if you give him if you give him like a Roma Dunze at the number 9 pick that the Bears also have, man, that could be a scary offense. And like I could see him settling in really quickly, and that being like a really good fantasy offense. I say scary because I'm a Packer fan. Obviously, that kind of terrifies me. So he's going to have a better situation than Jordan Love did early in his career. But I think that's the kind of upside that he has. And I think there's a pretty good chance that he hits that he becomes a very good that kind of tier 2 fantasy quarterback. But I think it's going to take some time. I don't think we can expect. I don't think you should expect him to kind of like Patrick Mahomes had a year and then he was threw 50 touchdowns in his first year as a starter, right? I don't expect that from Caleb Williams in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, obviously it almost feels unfair to Caleb Williams that we're already starting off with Patrick Mahomes comparisons. You know what I mean? And that's fair because it's what everyone's doing because the expectations are so high. And with that kind of comes with an interesting question that I have a couple for you. And Austin also bring up that he just started from the beginning. He is thankful that it is a Brewers jersey, Joel. He was worried. But it does bring up a question for me of if you're perceiving him to be he's not Mahomes in your eyes. He's not going to be. He could be very, very good, but he might not hit that top tier ceiling that everyone's expecting. Do you have any consideration to moving out of 101 for a haul, as we've talked about in years past of, well, not in years past, but in past draft classes of what you can get for the number one overall pick, and this year in particular, is remarkable. The package you could yield from that. Is there any thought about that? If you are one of those teams that's kind of, you could use a quarterback, you kind of have a lot of holes the rest of the roster. Do you consider moving out if you can get, whatever you want?
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm going to want if I need a quarterback, if I'm in position that I don't have a quarterback and I'm in position to draft a quarterback, I want a quarterback as part of that return. If that's Jordan Love, I'll do it in a heartbeat. If it's Anthony Richardson, I'm doing it in a heartbeat. If it's Kyler Murray and something else, I'm doing it in a heartbeat.
Would you do Kyler Murray, and what pick slot would it take for you? I was going to say 104. I was going to mention 104 off the top of my head, but I'm curious on if that was too much.
If I can get Kyler Murray in a first, I'm doing it easy. Yeah, for sure.
And a first? So how low would you go then? Let's say, would you drop out of the top 8 that we've talked about as, the Bowers, the 3 receivers, the 4 quarterbacks we expect to go in the first round? Top 8 right there. Would you fall outside? You'd have to be inside the top 8?
No, if I can get Kyler Murray in any first, I'm doing that.
Really? So, okay, just so I lay this out, I'm hearing you, because if I'm hearing you right, Joel, I might totally disagree with you as much as I am a big Kyler guy. But
now, would I hold out for more than that? Probably, right? Yeah. I would think I would want. I think I can get more than that on the open market, right? But if I'm on the clock and that's the best I can do, yes, I will do that.
Okay, and I think that's a testament to I think you could get a lot more than that. I think the market is kind of lukewarm on Kyler, and obviously the market is through the roof on Caleb Williams. I mean, it's something that the pundits out there and all that have gone back and forth on. I think it's ridiculous, but I forget which one said that Chicago is the best location for a number one overall pick in recent memory of a quarterback. This is a really near perfect situation that a rookie quarterback is walking into. Outside of the fact that it's an experienced OC. This isn't an unknown. Shane Waldron has done it for 10 years in the NFL. Worked with Pete Carroll in Seattle and worked with the Geno situation. And you have an offensive line that has been greatly overhauled and found a few gems last year's class in Darnold, right? You have a star veteran and a strong in his prime receiver in DJ Moore. And, there's a lot to like about Chicago right now. So I think with that in mind, you can really sell for whatever you wanted to if you had it. I think you can get. I'm trying to think of what other. I think you can get up to the 104, 105, baby, with Kyler for the 101, and I think you might even be able to get a throw-in piece with that.
If I could do that, if I could get Kyler and a piece that's probably Malik Neighbors or something like that, yeah, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
That's sure. What I'm saying. Do you have, if you have the 101, I don't want to shop my 101. My although
I don't think I have any 101s, but
I have one.
I have a lot of 102s.
Yeah, I've got I did whatever I could to secure Marvin Harrison out there, so I have plenty of shots at the high picks. But
I mean, just getting back to that comment you made about Chicago being the best landing spot. I think that's strange because I think if Minnesota is an objectively better landing spot for.
No, I'm saying of teams that have held the number one pick in recent years past
the number one pick. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. I'm saying because you don't normally see teams that are as genuinely well set up to take on a rookie quarterback as Chicago is this year because it's not their own first. And we never see the number one team get, the number one team being ready for a quarterback like this unless.
Sure. That's
I don't know the last time. We have Andrew Luck who gets berated who got battered in Indianapolis. Joe Burrow got battered in Cincinnati when he started. Jameis Winston was Jameis Winston, but that was a good situation, I guess. But I guess since Jameis, that was a pretty good situation for him, wasn't it? But he wasn't. Was he 101?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Okay.
him and Mariota. Mariota went
Yeah,
1 or
yeah. I
2.
forgot which one. I forgot which one with him or Mariota went first. But I'm getting off topic here. Caleb Williams. Where would you let's try to quickly slot him in. Where would you go? You'd obviously take him over Kyler. Um, I'm trying to think about where that range would
I
be.
mean, if I was starting it, if I want to win next year, I'd rather have Kyler. I think
Really?
Kyler's going to be more productive next year. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess
Now,
that's fair with the rookie expectation.
yeah, if I'm a team that earned the 101 and doesn't have any expectations of winning this year, then yeah, I'd rather have Caleb Williams. But if I'm a team that traded into a position to have the 101 and has a pretty good team that could contend this year, I think Kyler's going to be more productive this year.
Would you rather have Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams?
Caleb Williams. Again, I think
yeah.
Trevor Lawrence will probably be more productive this year, but Caleb has so much more dynasty value. I can do more with that.
Caleb or Dak?
Same situation, right? It's dynasty value versus production. All those guys, I think, are going to be more productive in 2024 than Caleb Williams will be.
And the last one I'll throw out there: Caleb or Brock Purdy.
I think it's the same situation. I expect Purdy to be more productive.
Come on, all this fence riding. Come on.
If
we
if
are
I'm a
absolutes in this industry, it is yes
if I'm
or
a team
no.
that,
There is no.
If I'm a team that wants to win this year, I would take Purdy and a piece over Caleb Williams. He's going to be more productive than Caleb Williams will be this year.
I'm curious quickly before we move on to the next quarterback. What are your expectations for his rushing volume? Because I think it's a very underrated part of his game, but we're obviously not going to see him run for 600. But do you think we can get a yearly 400 out of him?
I think that's reasonable. I wouldn't set that as my expectation. Like, he's not a Lamar Jackson level run. He's not a Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton level runner. I mean, he's nifty. He's not, a running back who can play quarterback. He's not that kind of player. So, he does some things that worry me. Like, when he's in the pocket, he turns his back on the defense, doesn't keep his eyes downfield. So I think there's some indication that he may bail on the pocket sooner than he should. And so I think that may buoy his rushing totals in year one. I think that's something that teams are going to want to coach out of him. So I think like year one will probably be his high water mark for rushing, and then it's going to kind of gradually go down from there.
Josh Pope adding in that he could run for 600. And I think we both acknowledge that he could.
I wouldn't expect it.
I think before long, and I'm with you here, is something they'll coach out him probably in year two of getting him more established at the pocket, getting him more comfortable, getting him in rhythm, because he's one of those quarterbacks that is just as he's better at throwing than he is at running. It says he is significantly better at passing than he is at running the football. And that's something that they get more out of him passing than they do running. So I think they will. I think you're right. That's something that might have worried them with Justin Fields, that they're going to do their best to not have with Caleb Williams.
And again, I don't want to make the Patrick Mahomes comparison because that's unrealistic and unfair. But
his rushing wise,
exactly. Patrick Mahomes during his first year as a starter, it looked like he could be a consistent 500-yard rusher. He looked like he had that upside. And then as it became obvious that he's a much better thrower than runner, he sticks in the pocket more. He doesn't want to run. He wants to win from structure. He doesn't want to do that kind of off platform, out of structure kind of stuff. So, and I think that's the way the coaching staff is going to want to push Caleb Williams to be more of a pocket passer. So like I said, I very much believe that whatever he does in his rookie year will be his high watermark for rushing.
Yeah. And if Caleb Williams continues that upper trajectory, they ask him to do more while probably surrounding him with less. And that leads to more rushing volume as well. So we could see that, with Patrick Mahomes, his rushing yards have pretty much not exponentially increased, but they've gone up in recent years. He's had 3 straight seasons, 350 rushing yards. He didn't have a single one in the 3 seasons prior to that. And it has helped to a bit. And yeah, we thank you, Josh Pope, for the both the comment and the nice comment afterwards. We appreciate that. But and Gator also saying with the weapons they brought in, he feels like the Bears don't want a running quarterback. And yeah, they've gone down that road. They want the long-term solution, and they want that long-term solution to be upright. Now, we have spent a lot of time talking about a player we know everything about pretty much. Let's go to another one that people aren't as sure about because of all the talk that we're hearing, Joel. All the talk that we're hearing, Drake May of UNC is not the one that we're hearing the most about right now. We're hearing Jane Daniels go number 2. Look at Jane Daniels' elbow. It's weird, right? Let's look at JJ McCarthy. Let's look at JJ McCarthy. All of a sudden, plus 500 to go number 2 overall when he was plus 2,000 a month ago. Caleb Williams, obviously going number 1 overall. We have not heard much about Drake May outside of a very, very funny but fake storyline about the quarterbacks he follows in the NFL. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's really...
I have not, no.
He follows a lot of white quarterbacks, not a ton of black quarterbacks. It's just it's a ridiculous thing because he does follow black quarterbacks. He follows PJ Walker and the fielders, but it was a funny thing. But there's nothing that people aren't talking about Drake May as much, and I'm curious on what your thoughts
are. So I think the obvious comparison is to Justin Herbert because body style wise, he looks the same. Kind of play style, they're the same. I don't think he's nearly as polished as Justin Herbert was a 3 or 4 year starter coming out of Oregon. Like he went
3, I think, but I'll double check right now.
I mean, he exhausted his eligibility, shall we say? He was the year before he came out. He could have come out and been the number 1. Went back to school, had a good but not great season, and that kind of dropped his draft value a little bit. So he exhausted his eligibility. Drake May is coming out a little younger. Like I think he's a guy who could have followed the same path and done some good for himself. Because I don't think he's nearly as good as Justin Herbert coming out or what Justin Herbert is now. He's got some real accuracy issues, some kind of fundamental mechanical things he needs to fix. He's not just kind of deadly accurate on the deep ball as Justin Herbert is. So I think it's an obvious comparison because they're very similar in play style and body size and type. But I don't think the polish is there. So I think that's a guy, when we talk about the insulated dynasty value, I don't expect, like I could see a situation where he doesn't start week 1, where he's kind of worked in, like if he goes to New England and they've got a Jacoby Brissett and, Drake May's not ready to play, I could very much see him kind of not being the week 1 starter. Whereas I think most of these other guys, I think are going to be week 1 starters.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think it's fair to say about Drake May because there are those reasons for pause in his profile of, it always scares me when quarterbacks take a perceived step back after taking a step forward. We saw Drake May last year Drake May in 2022 was way better than Drake May in 2023. It's not that Drake May was bad, but he was not as good as he was. And, you can point at certain reasons for doing it. If UNC has been producing some steady NFL, draft profiles in recent years. But with Justin Herbert, I'll give you the answer as well, by the way. 2 years as a full-time starter, played 8 games as a freshman and sophomore. So kind of a part-time relief role, I guess, or start the back half of games and then start the last 2 years. But obviously Drake May, only 3 years into college, 2 years as a starter, lit it up as his first year. Do you have any concern about his fantasy usage based on the fact that he's probably not going to be running all that much?
No, I mean, if he's got
the right situation,
the ceiling, if he's got the ceiling of a Justin Herbert, a Trevor Lawrence, where he's not someone who's going to lean on rushing yardage for production, but can still be, a very good fantasy quarterback. That's still a tier 2 guy. The question is, can he ever get to that level? So yeah, like, I don't think he ever has the ceiling to be, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. He's never going to reach that level or that tier. So, how does he fit into? So yeah, the question becomes, what's his ceiling?
How high is it?
Justin Herbert?
Yeah.
but that I mean, that is the ceiling. Now, can he develop into that player?
It's fair to ask. And I mean, Gator does point out something important of, losing the weapons that he has. And that's what I was mentioning before. Obviously, Josh Downs in the second round last year. They had Antoine Green, who, isn't that good, but he was a 7th-round pick. He was on UNC, obviously, last year. You had Ty Chandler the year before, but, with Sam Howell. But it's, I can't make a decision on how I feel about Drake May.
I
That's
mean, I don't
kind of
want to
how
make it seem like, I don't want to make it seem like I hate him, but I think there's real issues that need to be addressed before he can be an NFL starter. So I don't think he's going to see the field right away. I mean, he might, right? He may be forced into that situation. That happens all the time. Like Bryce Young wasn't ready to be a starter last year, but got forced into it because they had no other option. So, and he's probably going to go within the top 3, certainly, right? So 3 or 4 at the worst. So yeah, I think he's probably going to be in a situation where they're going to want him to be a week 1 starter, but I'm not sure that he's ready for that.
And he's very much one of those profiles, for me at least, that I care about his landing spot more than I care about anyone else's. Maybe JJ McCarthy, but like with Drake May, especially because for all the reasons you just said and I'm going to look at ownership of where he lands. If he lands in Washington, I'm concerned. It's a new ownership group. New ownership groups are notoriously short-sighted, right? I think it's fair to say. They want their guy. They are ready. Like they have publicly said that they are taking a quarterback pretty much. They are ready to establish their way, his way, Josh Harris's quarterback of the future. And that comes with some heavy responsibilities. And that's a lot to throw on someone like Drake May. So that's something I'd be a little bit worried about. He lands in, Minnesota. I think Minnesota would be the perfect landing spot for him of, let's sit and learn behind a tried and true superstar in Sam Darnold and takes away what he needs to from that of being, a fellow number 2 overall pick, someone who's been, where all this was, and pairs with a Kevin O'Connell, a guy who's coached a number 1 pick in Jared Goff. And, I think that room just creates such a good fostering environment of just culture between Sam Darnold and Drake May. Even connecting the USC to UNC bridge that there might be between Caleb Williams and Drake May. It's somewhat poetic, one would say. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Gator did add that we could go on for 2 hours, and I think I would be a reason for that because I just get poetic. But I did get you to laugh hard, and I don't always get you to laugh hard.
You did very much. I mean, the reason Minnesota would be the ideal fit is because they've got the best offensive line of any team that's going to be taking a quarterback. And Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and eventually TJ Hawkins. And so, yeah, I mean, that's going to be the default landing spot. And like, if Drake May goes there and he starts week 1, then I'm going to be much higher on him because I think that's the ideal situation for any quarterback in the draft. Because if he goes to New England, Washington, neither of those teams have really good offensive lines. And I think that's a situation that he could struggle with. So, and like, well, Washington has good weapons and they've got Terry McLaurin, got
Zach Ertz,
John Dotson. Sure. You can go to New England. I'm like, you're worried about his weapons in North Carolina. That could be just a
Hunter
mess.
Henry, Demario Douglas. Who else? I genuinely am not actually sure who else is there now because Devontae Parker's gone. I guess you still have.
You got Pop Douglas,
You got Thornton.
Tyquan Thornton's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they could trade back for Jacoby Myers, but let's move on to Jane Daniels with LSU. I think this is the guy I'm most excited to see about and the guy I'm rooting for the most because he was just so much fun to watch this year at LSU. He has the mobility to be that top tier fantasy asset on certain sites. You might see Jane Daniels ahead because of that, ahead of Caleb Williams because of that perceived rushing volume, and it's a very real thing. So, what are your thoughts on Jane Daniels, Heisman winner Jane Daniels? Because I think I'm higher on him than you are.
I was very nervous about him because of the size, and he weighed in at 210 at his pro day. So I think that makes me feel a little bit better about him. I still have some questions about him as a passer. Just like Ian Hard's put out a tweet the other day that had like a 2-minute stream of him throwing over the middle, which was kind of his perceived weakness. Obviously, he's got a really good deep ball. He can run and at a near elite level. But in that video package that he put out, and I kind of tweeted this subtweeted this, 23 throws, 22 were from a clean pocket, and like half of those were from a pocket that you would see more time to throw than he will ever see at any time in his career in the NFL. Like he had literally 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw. That's not going to happen at the NFL level. And I think there were only 2, maybe 3 tight window throws. I mean, everything was just wide open coming over the middle. So yes, he can throw over the middle, but the situation or the circumstances were kind of ideal. And you're going to have to sort out how much, because he did nothing at Arizona State. He did nothing his first year at LSU. And then now he gets Malik Neighbors taking off, Brian Thomas Jr. taking off. How much of his success was because of those guys being, kind of elite weapons that defenses had to account for and actually couldn't. And how much was just because of his development. So again, a really tough evaluation because he's going to have to do things in the pros that he never had to worry about in college.
Yeah. And he's such an interesting profile because he started at such a remarkably young age, right? Where he was a 17-year-old who threw 363 passing attempts at USC. That's uncommon, just to say the least. And in the last couple of years at LSU, I think we've seen this like when he transferred to LSU from Arizona State, that was what we wanted to see, right? We wanted to see him take a step forward. And I think we did, where he cut his interceptions only down to 3 last year and then only 4 to 40 touchdowns this year. So I think he has the experience and he's been through the turmoil that a lot of college quarterbacks don't go through. Like it's another reason why I like Bo Nix, of somebody that kind of went through it all and came out better for it. That's it. The big thing I think for me as well is the weight. And I'm not worried about it, but as Gator brings up, of at 210, can he keep taking the hits, because he does struggle to put himself in good situations, which is something that NFL teams will certainly be working out of him. And Josh adding as well, though, that Lamar was about the same size when he came to the league. He had to wait. Although he says what concerns him about Daniel's weight is that he declined to get weighed at both the combine and pro day. What is he hiding? It's always interesting when we get stuff like that where we don't have the direct answers. And the only thing I can assume is just because his draft profile right now is still trending up. The only way it starts trending down is if he weighs in and becomes perceived underweight. Right now he has the 210, and 210 seems safe, right? 210 seems fine. You alleviate a lot of concerns at 210 versus 200. And, I think we could ask the question, but until we get the answer to contradict it, it saves him. And as Gator says, you don't have the answers. We do. Yeah, Jane Downs is going to be a fancy QB1 for the next decade. That's my answer. But go on, Joel. I feel like you had an answer biting on your tongue.
No, I just think again, getting back to the Kurt Warner thing, we've never seen him kind of operate under the kind of pressure that he's going to face, the pocket pressure that he's going to face at the NFL level. How does he adjust to that? How does he adjust when he doesn't have, Malik Neighbors running, slot fades all the time that you like college corners cannot cover, right? So and you're just going to keep throwing that route because they can't stop it. So when he has to run through progressions, when he has to read a defense, how does that, how does that translate to the next level? I think he'll probably be fine. I think he'll be good. Like I like him. I don't want to sound like I don't want to be a hater about this, but
no, you're a hater. We hear you.
There are legitimate questions that need to be answered, and I'm just not going to default to this guy as the next Lamar Jackson, or is going to be, I can get the next Lamar Jackson at 103 in my Superflex rookie draft.
It's my firm belief that Justin Fields died so Jane Daniels can live. That's I think it's gonna happen. I'm really hoping that's why. Millie, good to see you in the chat. And the reason why I didn't bring up your Bo Nix one is because I love it. I am so in agreement with you with your Bo Nix comment in the chat, and I'll bring it up when we get to Bo Nix. But Millie adding that Penix running a 4.5 at his pro day tremendously up to stock. Joel, I'm curious if you agree with that because I see Josh doesn't, and truthfully I don't either because I have a lot of other concerns about Penix, and speed wasn't really like I don't think Penix is running all that much even if he's running a 4.5 40. Do you see him moving?
I think his ability to move was kind of underrated in the first place. So I guess I'm not like super surprised by this because I like he didn't show it a lot, but he showed the ability. Like he's got some movement skills to him. He's going to be primarily a pocket quarterback. So yeah, I don't know that it like tremendously up to stock. The athleticism helps, and I think if anything, it helps show that the knee problems are probably behind him. Even more, just a little bit more than just adds on to the season that he had as kind of proof of concept that the knee surgeries are behind him and he's healthy and he can play at the NFL level without the injury concerns. I think that helped in that way. I don't know that any evaluator is going to look at him and say speed is part of his game and that's the way we're going to use him.
Right.
So I don't think that changes that much.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, let's go over to the biggest riser of the last few months, which has been JJ McCarthy, who, again, is now suddenly in the running of going number 2 overall. Why? I'm not totally there. I'll be honest. I'm not totally there with why JJ McCarthy is going as high as he is on boards because I don't see a ton of things. I think he got away with a lot of things at Michigan, but I'm curious on what your thoughts are because I worry about what his ceiling is and I worry about what his floor is. I don't like both of them, honestly.
I think the 102 thing or second overall thing is complete smokescreen. I don't think that's going to happen. But it makes sense for Washington to put that out there. If we've heard rumors that he's the guy Minnesota's after. So yeah, I could take him at number 2 and maybe I don't think Minnesota's going to go up that high because they don't have to, right? They can get somebody that like at 104, but it makes sense for Washington to put that out there. I don't think it's a real consideration. So the knock on McCarthy is obviously he didn't have that many throws at Michigan. He was, I don't want to say system quarterback, but he was a quarterback in a offense that ran the ball a lot. So just didn't have
the college Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah. So my question, like he's got the arm talent. I have no question about that. Couple things that worry me. And one is it's not the lack of volume. It's that he doesn't have the kind of the rep bank that most of these quarterbacks have, right? He just hasn't seen that many situations. So I'm not going to ding him because he doesn't have a lot of throw experience. I'm just saying he's probably gonna have to learn these things kind of on the fly at the pro level. And the second thing is one thing that bothers me, and this is something that I don't want to compare him to Desmond Ridder. I'm just saying in this case, it's a very similar thing is that he needs a very wide base to be able to get his best throws off. Like whenever you see his elite, kind of his big time throws, he's got a clean pocket. He's got a wide base for his legs. I don't see kind of the ability to kind of make tight quarter throws that you can see with Caleb Williams, right? He can still get off like elite throws kind of in tight quarters. I don't see that with JJ McCarthy. Everything is either in a clean pocket or on the move where he can kind of stretch out and get his legs underneath him. So that's something I really, that concerns me. Like, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I haven't seen him do it. So I don't know if he can do it.
Yeah. You have to ask the question because of that. And I mean, the one thing with him is that he's still incredibly young. He's 20 years old right now. I believe he's turning 21 soon. So there's a lot of ways he can get better, but I'm 100% with you of things he wasn't asked to do. And I just it's too much of not being asked to do, because we talked about before, yeah, on this show even about with players we still like despite them not being asked to do a whole ton. But with JJ McCarthy, for me, I don't I don't think he made the play very often because he was never really asked to do that. It was always that Michigan defensive line. It was always Blake Corum. It was always Donovan Edwards. It was somebody that was able to make the play instead of him. And I worry about that. I worry about what that translates to on the next level. And the other side of it as well, which I don't put a ton of stock into. I don't, Joel, I swear. But 9-inch hands, 9-inch hands. I'm getting flashbacks. Of another very small-handed quarterback in recent seasons. 6th percentile, if you're curious, by the way, in hand size. Not great. Not great for JJ McCarthy if you care about that at all.
I do, but it's not like the 0th percentile that Kenny Pickett was at 8.5, right?
Kenny is 0 in everything. We can
but I mean, to your point, there were a lot of throws that he made in college that looked like kind of highlight throws that you go, there's no way that throw works in the NFL. He's either, he's getting picked up. There's a lot of kind of throwing back against his body, throwing late over the middle. It's like you try and make those throws at the next level, you're getting, you're either getting your receiver killed or you're getting picked off. So that's something he's going to have to kind of, you're not Brett Favre, dude. You need to take that out of your head that you can get away with that kind of stuff. And unlearning that stuff is tough.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to see out of JJ McCarthy, which we won't be able to see until it's too late, or too late until he gets drafted, is how does he respond to struggles? He's never really struggled. He never had a 3 interception game where then he got sacked 6 times. Like he has had a very similar production tree for the last 2 years of he does what he's asked to do. I think he's thrown 22 touchdowns in each of the 2 seasons, only a handful of picks, high completion percentage. He's been so steadily fine that I need to see. I don't know how he's going to react when things hit the fan. Caleb Williams has faced unbelievable pressure due to his expectations. Jane Daniels has bounced through 3 different teams to get to where he is now. Bo Nix, same concept. Penix, all these guys have had to struggle and claw and find deeper things within themselves to get better at their craft. I'm not going to fault JJ McCarthy for not having to do that, but he wasn't asked to. And that's just another thing that he wasn't asked to do, that when that really the high expectations that comes with being, a high NFL draft pick, even though it's a high expectation of being the quarterback of Michigan, it's higher for the NFL franchise. So I'm a little bit nervous about JJ McCarthy, especially if he goes as high as he does.
I don't want to be totally crapping on him because he's obviously talented.
Yes.
He's a winner, right? He, like you said, he didn't have to go through struggle, 100%. But a lot of that was because he was winning. So
yeah,
it's like that's a good thing, and the NFL is going to value that like 100%. The league is going to value that.
Biggest plus in his profile is
so yeah, he's going to be looked at as a Brock Purdy type, where he can just come in and like command an offense, run an offense. He did run a pro style offense in college. He beat Alabama in the playoffs, right? So he's won big time games, and he was a big part of that. So there are good things in the profile, but there are legitimate questions. And if he goes to Minnesota, like I could see him being a top 10, top 12 fantasy quarterback easily. So, but the situation's got to be right for him.
Yeah, and I think that perfectly ties in with what Josh just said about McCarthy is all about projection. He has the traits, and coaches will convince themselves they're the ones to mold the untapped potential. And a coach can convince me that he's the one to do it if it's Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. But another one, I don't know if Dan Quinn in Washington can convince me of that. I don't know if I don't know if Sean Payton in Denver can even convince me of that, even though I think we're going to have different opinions on that. And as on the topic of Denver, because we're probably going to be talking about them in one of these quarterbacks, let's start with Michael Penix. Out of the wonderful season that Washington had, what are your thoughts on Michael Penix, the older guy, the banged up guy, but the guy that can certainly sling it?
We talked about Denver, and I know you were going to go to Bo Nix on this. Man, I would love to see Michael Penix in Denver. It's not going to happen because
Bo
Sean
Nix
Payton is too
deserves it.
stubborn.
Yeah.
Sean Payton is too stubborn. He's not going to change his offense to do this. But what is the one advantage that Denver has over the rest of the league? It's that they play at altitude, right? So let's build a team with Michael Penix where you are just stressing the defense consistently. Take the Miami offense, move it to Denver, and put the defense through 40 minutes of hell, taking a college basketball reference, where you're just going to run them all over the field. You're going to tire them out because you're in better shape than them. You play in this, you live in these conditions, you play in these conditions, you practice in these conditions. You're just going to dominate them athletically and from an endurance standpoint in your home games. Just run them all over the field and let Penix do what he does. You've got the kind of the receivers to do that. You've got a boundary X guy in Cortland Sutton. You've got Marvin Mims, who you can kind of line up around the formation and get your mismatches. You've got an offensive line that's not great, but decent, pretty good. That can, like Miami's offensive line wasn't good last year. They were just destroyed by injuries.
Denver can hold its own.
So that's what I would love to see. Again, I don't think that's going to happen because it's Sean Payton and that's not what he wants to do. But man, that would be fun. And from a fantasy standpoint, that would be just awesome.
I'm so curious to see on how Denver's going to just operate in general this year, because if you look at that receiver room now, with the addition of Josh Reynolds and the departure of Jerry Jeudy, there are two players that are under 6'2" in their receiver room. One of them is Marvin Mims at 5'11", and the other one is also 5'11", first round legend, Colts, Patriots, Philip Dorsett. Philip Dorsett is still in the league.
Is he still in the league?
He's still in the league. Yeah, he's on Denver. So that's the room right now, though. It's a very big receiving room that doesn't really lend itself to that Miami style. So I think we might have to keep that in your dreams and your fantasies.
Probably.
But,
so
yeah.
I talked about the fit, like the evaluation. Obviously, he's a superior deep ball thrower. The deep ball, yes. The arm, the accuracy is just elite. Doesn't have a lot of. I think he's got underrated mobility, but that's not going to be his game. The question is, he kind of breaks down mechanically. Sometimes he's not great over the middle. Obviously, we saw in the national championship game, he really struggled with kind of a pro level defense that Michigan threw at him and didn't have a good. But Texas has got a pretty good defense, and he just lit them up and was spectacular. Like I've seen this point made on Twitter as well. If they just would have lost that game to Texas, like Texas ties it up at the end and they lose in overtime, something like that, Michael Penix is easily going in the top 6. There's no question. But he had that bad game that against Michigan that kind of reinforced the questions about him. So I'm going to lean on what can you do instead of what can't you do, and hope that that he can make those adjustments at the next level. So I'm still in on him. I still think I think his floor is kind of draft wise is where Will Levis went last year, that kind of early second round. I don't know that a team's going to kind of trade up into the first round to get him, because I don't know that the 5th year option is that attractive when he's, he is an older prospect. He does have the injuries.
He'll be 24 by August.
Yeah. So I think that's his absolute floor. I think he will probably go before that, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's Denver, when there's other teams that don't really have the ammo to kind of trade up into the top 4. I do think he's going to go in that range.
Yeah, I think we'll be surprised by who takes Michael Penix. I think he's somebody that I don't think he's going to go to one of the main teams. I don't know why I really think this. I truthfully don't have a great explanation for why I do, but I think the Giants could be that type of landing spot, sure. Which isn't, it wouldn't be all that surprising for the Giants to take a quarterback, but I think that's somewhere where it can make sense of, as old as Michael Penix is and has much experience as he has, I still don't want him to be a day one starter. I think he has a lot to get used to on the NFL level of just the speed, the timing of it, because his lows can be really low. And I think that will be a huge detriment and disservice to his potential and development. So you thrust him into a bad situation as a rookie. I don't think it's the best way for him, but I do think he could be a year or two starter and beyond potentially, and almost like aside from the injury, obviously, but a Hendon Hooker type of situation of sitting behind a guy, and if you need him to step up, you're clearly. I'm not comparing him to Hendon Hooker. I'm saying that I think that's the situation that, and I like Penix more than I like Hendon Hooker for the record, but I don't think he should be a day one starter. Yeah, I think you disagree with me on that, but I don't think he should be a day one starter.
I think one of the knocks on him is that he is as developed as he's going to be. So if that's the case, then why shouldn't he be? Then why isn't he a day one? Like he's going to like.
I guess I
to say he's not as developed as he could be is kind of not fair. Like there's going to be some development. There's going to be NFL level coaching. I think he's got the ability to be a day one starter. So I don't think a team that's going to be a bad fit for him is going to take him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think my thinking is more so just along the lines of, I think he can throw the deep ball, and that's obviously he can throw the deep ball, and that's the big thing that is the hardest. It's hard for someone to learn that. That's a good thing to start off with. But I think everything else is where we'll see turnovers or where we'll see an issue. And I know that wasn't a big problem for him in college, but I think it's something that if he's struggling in the short and intermediate, that's something that can really snowball on him in mistakes, and that could be a huge disservice to him. Because I think that's where the interceptions will come. They won't come on the deep balls. I think they'll come on, a bad read over, in the middle of the field or something along those lines. But he is somebody that, and Seattle, as Josh puts in, and as you agree, Seattle was what I wanted to say. I think Seattle will be a fantastic landing spot. I just don't think it's going to happen because of the Sam Howell trade. I think they are pretty high on Sam Howell, to be honest. No,
I don't think Sam Howell should stop you from making a quarterback of the future decision.
Not me. Although I am a Sam Howell guy, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying I'm echoing what General Manager John Schneider said, which was John Schneider was singing Howell's praises, and we haven't really heard much from Mike McDonald about it. But the comments were very positive about they believe he could be the guy if push came to shove, and I don't know if they're willing to put in another pick into a quarterback room when they're already sent another one out for help. But it'll be curious. It would be a good fit. But as we're already running incredibly long because I ramble too much, and Josh will have me for this. But Bo Nix, let's get over to it. Bo Nix of Oregon. I like this guy. Listen, notice I called him guy. I'm not going to say kid. I can't say kid about a guy who's like 3 years older than me. Bo Nix out of Oregon. It took him forever. He was abysmal at Auburn, but he was so unbelievably good at Oregon. He made every throw. Sure, he's not going to run for 400 yards. He's not going to run for 300 yards, but he will hit every single throw that you ask him to do in the pocket. I struggle to watch him and see anything but a complete quarterback of somebody that is just so accurate and so consistent and was asked to do big things because he had to carry Oregon. Not that Oregon was a bad team, but he was asked to make a lot of big plays, and he really delivered in a lot of them. So I'm a big fan of Bo Nix, but what are your thoughts? Because I know we differ a little bit.
I'm not as big a fan, but I think I like him more than consensus. I think if you put him in the right situation, he can be really good. And again, talking about Denver because it makes sense, but because I think he's going to be a timing kind of rhythm style quarterback. Yes. I think that's where that fits, and that's what Sean Payton has historically run. So I think he could be a good fit there. I think if you put him on like the Raiders and ask him to kind of carry that offense, I don't think that's going to be a good fit. But I think if you in an offense that can accentuate what he does well, kind of hide the negatives, then I think he can be a very good starter in the league.
I'm curious on what he obviously has flaws, but I'm curious on what you perceive, what you think his negatives are. What do you think he needs to work on?
I think just consistency, right? he's shown he can throw deep, he can throw intermediate. It's just it comes and goes. So is that a mechanical thing? Is that a focus thing? I think that's something that needs to be fixed. So, like you said, the upside is there because he's shown he can make all the throws. He can do that. He ran like a really elite level offense at Oregon, but didn't have. Pac-12 isn't known for its elite defense. It has some good defenses, but it's not known for its having elite defense. So the competition level, I mean, it was Power 5 for sure, but again, not. It wasn't like the Big Ten, right, where you're going to run into kind of high level defenses on a regular basis. So it's consistency, it's mechanical stability, it's how does he do, how does he do in a messy pocket, because how does he do under center? It's the same questions I have with all these guys, basically.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest worry that I have is what you brought up right there about the schedule, because I can't ignore that. He didn't play good defenses. He really did not play that good defenses. But at the same time, he also did what you wanted him to do against bad defenses, which is shred them. So it's a question mark that you have to ask, and we'll see how it fares on the next level. And Rance also commenting.
I want to see real quick. I want to see him go to a team that I know can develop a quarterback.
Yes.
If he goes again,
how about Minnesota?
No, sure. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be a really good situation for him. Yeah. I just like the Raiders. What are they going to do with the quarterback? I don't know. So
I don't know.
I think that's kind of a sketchy fit for him.
I'm holding out. I think Bo Nix is more pro ready than Penix personally, which we clearly differ on. But
I disagree with that, but I don't think it's outlandish.
Yeah. I don't think you're outlandish either, Joel. I don't think you are. So Rant's also adding that he doubts any rookie does what Stroud does, which I think both of us agree, because Stroud had
I agree with that
all-time
100%.
All-time season. Yeah, we can talk up Caleb Williams for half an hour like we did, but
CJ Stroud was more pro ready than any quarterback in this class.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue with that when he does what he does anyway, and I do love me some CJ Stroud. Now there are a few other profiles or draft prospects that we have guys out there that are more developmental guys. You got the Michael Pratts of the world. What are your thoughts on any other guys out there?
I don't want to use this as a crapping platform, but I hate Spencer Rattler. I don't see it. I don't see the velocity. He's got an arm to make the throws. I don't see any velocity on those throws. I don't think he's going to get picked apart in the league. I think he's got career backup written all over him. I think Joe Milton is interesting, right? Just because he's got one tool that is beyond reproach. So again, if he goes to a place where he can be with a high-end quarterback developer and he gets a couple years to sit, I think there's potential there.
Let me
He's
tell you
not pro ready in any way whatsoever.
The one spot where I will draft Joe Milton. Rams.
Sure.
Sean McVay,
yep.
Matt Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo. You are not asked to do a single thing. You cut Stetson Bennett and send him packing down to the retirement home, and you immediately get started on this new guy, and you see what you got. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it won't happen because I don't think they're ready to call it quits on Stetson Bennett after spending a 4th-round pick just a year ago. But I would love to see that, and I think that's the situation where I would be in on him, because athletic freak, but there's pretty much nothing else I kind of like about him.
Well, I mean, what I would want for him is like Aaron Brooks back 20 years ago, who was drafted by the Packers, sat behind Brett Favre for about 3 years. Then they traded him to New Orleans once he was kind of fully formed. Was a starter for, I think he made a Pro Bowl, was a solid starter for a couple of years. I think that would be the best case scenario for Joe Milton. There's zero expectation of him playing for, like, you are just going to sit. You're going to be our third guy. We're going to give you time. We're going to give you coaching. but there's zero expectation that you're ever going to play.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing with like I mentioned, or all the name I keep bringing up of Michael Pratt. It's the same thing with all these developmental guys. Of there's a much greater chance that we never see them play than having them hit. So
best case, like I said, for Rattler is that he's a career backup.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you that I stress that is, I think, the high end of him. I don't see anything in him that would suggest he's a long-term NFL starter. I think his biggest attributes was his high school status, and even that has been kind of marred with some older videos when those came out when he was at Oklahoma. So it's I'm not all that in either. Saying Gator saying Spencer Rattler hate has to end. Not on this show. Not on the after party, unfortunately. The after party is an anti-Rattler zone. So.
I like you said, I just don't see anything in his game that makes me think he has NFL starter in his future.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. Now, let's jump over to our Do Better trade reviews. We do it every single show. So let's run through a few real quick, Joel. Starting off with one that you put in here, Lamar Jackson in a 12-team Superflex start 10. Lamar Jackson, Marvin Mims, 204 for Jordan Love, Puka Nacua, and Dontavian Wicks. What a spicy deal that I honestly have pretty strong opinions about, believe it or not. And I want that Jordan Love side, but tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, I put this in the show notes. It's like, was this terrible trade offer week? And I missed a memo or something? Because like I got a ton of trade offers this week and did not make one single deal because they were all terrible.
Like, I sent you a trade offer.
Yeah, we need to work that one up. That one's not included. I'm not including that one. Since Sunday, let's say that. This is a terrible deal. Like, yeah, even if like you want to say that Lamar Jackson is better than Jordan Love, like, okay, fine. Like head to head, I would take Lamar Jackson over Jordan Love. I think they're in a tier, but 1-to-1, I would take Lamar ahead of Jordan Love, no question. Puka Nacua is the tax to go from Jordan Love to Lamar Jackson? Come on, bro. No, that's way too much. I would take Dontavian Wicks straight up over Marvin Mims because he did something in year one, and Marvin Mims did not. 204 doesn't move the needle on having to give up Puka Nacua to go from Love to Jackson. Hard pass.
Yeah. I for some reason I felt I also sent a low ball Puka Nacua offer out there for someone. I don't know what it is about this time of year where I think I can get Puka Nacua for cheap, but you know what?
Like the tax to go from Jordan Love to Lamar Jackson should be like Deontay Johnson. It shouldn't be Puka Nacua for Christ's sake.
Deontay Johnson and like a late second, probably.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah,
I mean that makes sense.
Certainly not Puka. This
is absurd.
Yes. Fair enough. Let's go another one that's not as absurd, I think. Maybe. 12-team Superflex starting 10. Tua and Jalen Waddle for Justin Herbert and Devonta Smith. I have genuine concerns about what this Chargers team is going to look like for Justin Herbert's usage. That said, I'm still taking Justin Herbert and Devonta Smith. But what are your thoughts? I think we're on the same side here.
Yeah, I like Devonta and Waddle. 6 of one, half a dozen the other, right? I prefer Devonta, but they're close. It's not anything that's going to make or break a deal. I would much rather have Herbert than Tua. No question. Even, and I share your concerns about how this offense is going to look. But I mean, is Tua a long-term quarterback? I'm not sure.
The fact that we're asking the question seals the deal for me. If we're asking that question about the biggest parts in the deal, then because the biggest parts in the Superflex deal are the quarterbacks. If we're asking questions about one quarterback that we're not asking about the other, and the receivers are close to the same, if not the same, because I'm with you. I'd prefer to have Devonta. There's not really a deal to be made,
And the structure of the deal is quarterback receiver for quarterback receiver, right? So
it's trying to lure you with the stack.
Yeah, exactly. If the receivers are close, then the quarterback difference needs to be a tier at least. And like this is the other way around. I think Tua is a tier below Herbert. And so like to make this deal, I would need to be getting, just to make me want to do this, I would need to be getting like, you need to kick up to Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, something like that. I would need a definite, otherwise what's the point? Right?
Yeah.
It's a coin flip at best. And this is an anti-coin flip because I would
and even then I think you take on way more risk. without honestly taking on any upside.
Yeah, exactly. The stack is great, but if Tua gets hurt, then the stack is worthless and I'm screwed. So I would rather have the diverse side.
And my worry isn't even hurt. My worry is them moving on from Tua a year from now or something like that. If they are a first round exit, or he gets hurt at the end of the year, or it just they flounder at the end of the season, they miss the playoffs. All those things I could.
Or they just don't agree on a contract, right?
They just don't agree on a contract.
If Tua says I'm worth $55 million and the Dolphins say
he said we're not going to pay him more than 45, he's out.
Right, exactly. So yeah, he would probably have to flounder on the franchise tag for a year or so, but I could see him being traded at that point.
Yeah, 12 team Superflex start 10 tight end premium. Christian McCaffrey, the 109, 209, 309, 409, otherwise known as the whole draft class, for Kyren Williams, the 102 and 202. This makes my brain melt a little bit, I gotta say, because 109 is just out of our top 8 royalty that we like. 209, 309, we are talking back end of that, and then we're talking Kyren Williams and probably Marvin Harrison, right? We're gonna safe to say Marvin Harrison, and then 202 could be potentially one of those tier 2 quarterbacks or that next set of receivers. That's interesting. Which side are you on this?
So here's how I broke this down. 202 equals 209, 309, 409. I think that's pretty close.
Fair? Yeah. Give or take. I'd rather have the 202, but yeah.
Right, but it's pretty close. Kyren for the 109 is like, I wouldn't trade the 109 for Kyren, but like, again, you said it's out of our top 8 range where guys we really want.
I could see it happening. I wouldn't do it either, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, you get on the clock and you've got a stacked receiver room, but you'd rather have a running back, but there's nothing you want to take there. I could see flipping the 109 for Kyren Williams. So I think that's pretty close. So this comes down to like Christian McCaffrey for the 102. I love Christian McCaffrey. I think he's the running back 1. I'm not moving him for the 102. No way. There's just the dynasty value does not match up.
Interesting.
I would much rather have Marvin Harrison.
I thought you were going to go the other way with this. Wait. Sorry.
I want the 102.
Okay.
McCaffrey or the 102.
Okay. We are on the same side. You would rather have the 102 than Christian McCaffrey. Okay. Yep. That's what I thought you would say. And I think that's the right approach, because I'd rather have a top 5 dynasty receiver than a top 5 dynasty running back, even though you already won overall. That just makes sense to me. I think it just comes down to I'm not the biggest Kyren guy. I would just need a different player than Kyren Williams. I need to think about who that would be. But I don't know. But if I was a Kyren Williams guy, I would be with you all the way. And if I can replace him with someone else, I would still be right there with you. I'm trying to think about who else would be in that range, but for some reason I'm struggling to think of one. But regardless, let's go on over here. Kenneth Walker. If it was Kenneth Walker, I would have taken Kenneth Walker instead of Kyren Williams. Fair? Is that absurd? Is that the same tier?
They're close enough.
Yeah, why not? All right. Move on to the next one. 12 team Superflex start 9. No tight end premium. Devon A. Chan for the 103. This is ridiculous. What the hell are we doing? What are we? Please, what is this? What is this?
I am as big a Devon Achane fan as there is. There's no way he's worth the 103.
Okay, I just want to make sure you weren't scamming someone real quick, because this is
no. You have to have. I was offered this.
You have to have a level of. This is do better. This is why it's a do better. Like, do better than offer people this. Like, you are a better person. You could be the worst person on earth. You are a better person than offering Devon Achane for the 103
in a one quarterback. Sure,
in a super flex league. One quarterback, I wouldn't do it, but I can understand, because you're trading. Yeah, then you're trading a Dunze for Achane. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's probably okay. Yeah. You're right. I wouldn't do it, but it's still close, right? I would probably put Achane in like the 104 in a one quarterback.
I was going to say, would you take Bowers? Would you take Bowers, or would you take Achane and no premium?
In a non-touting premium, I would take Achane.
Okay, so then that would be his value would be 104.
So it's close. It's reasonable, and it's super flex. It's again.
Sure.
I am as high on HN as anyone in the world.
Yes, you are. Yes,
and there's no way I'm taking the 103. I'm giving up the 103 for him.
Yeah, that's more than fair, and we are in agreement there. The last one here, 12-team Superflex, starting 10, no tight end premium. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, 207 for Jordan Love and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh boy, we got Rams a duo. I'm gonna pretty confidently take the Jordan Love and Amon-Ra side, as much as I love Puka Nacua, like without even a doubt, without even thinking twice about this. But I imagine you're on the same page.
Yes, I have the Jordan Love and Amon-Ra St. Brown side, and I was at work and I audibly laughed when I saw this offer. First of all, I'm not moving Jordan Love in a super flex without getting some kind of quarterback back, even though this is a team that has quarterbacks. So I guess I could see someone making me the offer that, that they don't necessarily have to give up a quarterback to move up. But like, I would rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown over Puka. It's close enough that you can kind of scratch those two out. So Kyron Williams in the 207 for Jordan Love? No way. And I like Kyron. I like Kyron a lot, but that's not close. It's a quarterback in a super flex. Kyron Williams is not close to a quarterback in a super flex.
I'm 100% with you, and honestly, I don't have much to add beyond that because these are a lot of players that we've talked about. And Amon-Ra is just so awesome, and any chance I can get him, I try to. I would never give him up. Now, Joel, I got one more for you. We got a secret trade on the dock here because this was offered to me, and I want more. I may or may not have just forgotten it was offered to me in one of my Dynasty leagues, and it is actually a tough one that I was kind of deciding on. It is a one quarterback, no tight end premium, Gardner Minshew and Travis Etienne for JSN 210 2025 second.
One quarterback, Gardner Minshew and Travis Etienne for JSN.
Gardner Minshew, I don't need, so he's essentially out of this.
I don't care. So this is Travis Etienne for JSN, 2 seconds and one quarterback who I really don't care about. So
that second is also not mine.
I would rather have. I'm down on Travis Etienne, so I would rather have JSN. You throw in the 2 seconds, and I think this is kind of a smash for JSN. For the JSN side.
On the JSN side, I'm a big Etienne guy, and
this is probably a deal you could get done because I'm lower on Etienne than most people are.
Yeah, it was offered to me, so I could press accept right now. I just have kind of been going back and forth on it. I haven't had the time to just sit down and think it over, but it's a tough one. It is a tough one. Gardner is obviously not part of it for me, but I'll keep thinking about it. But I wanted to bring it up for the show because it is an interesting one, at least with all the unknowns with JSN's value right now, and I'm really hoping that works out. I'm trying to decide whether I go down with the ship or whether I ride it out. And I know we're 1 year into, but he's an interesting guy. But either way, that kind of wraps up our Friday Dynasty After Party, Joel. This was fun. We may have talked a while, but I think we talked about a lot of fun things, and fun things are fun things. And as the kids say,
quarterbacks are fun.
Yep. I got to use those more. I got to hit people with more of that. So if anybody's listening to this after the fact that just heard that while they're driving, I apologize. Not. Either way, thank you all for tuning in, especially on kind of a last-minute change of switching it to Friday because of Sunday obviously being Easter. So we want to make sure we still got you guys with your Dynasty content. Thank you for tuning in. Gator as well. Great show. I appreciate you, Gator. We always do.
Thanks, Gator. Thanks for checking in as always. Appreciate it.
Yes. It's always awesome to see. So we'll see you next week. Back on Sunday, Joel, and we'll be getting into the next position group. Which one are you feeling? You feeling running backs? You feeling wide receivers? Feeling tight ends? Where are we gonna go?
I think we need to break up the ugly. So we'll do running backs first, and then receivers, and then tight ends, because the running backs and tight ends are pretty ugly. So
that's fair. If we do running backs back to back with tight ends, we probably lose our entire following. So either way, thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Happy Easter to everybody that celebrates.
Happy Easter,
especially
everybody.
The Gator if Gator celebrates.
Thanks everyone for checking in. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day, everybody. Remember, Dynasty's like a disco ball. Keeps on rolling, bowling, spinning year round. So Remember, oh my goodness. Wow. You think after almost a year of doing this, we're close to our 1 year, I would actually be able to nail that, but it keeps us spinning year round. So join the club every Sunday, usually 11 a.m. Eastern here at Club Fantasy FFL. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.